the next feature on our agenda is about AI Sweden and Edge Lab. I'm not sure if we should do that in English or Swedish, but I think the presentation will be in English, so I'll continue with this one. We will get an update from the National Center for Applied AI, AI Sweden. How is everything being run today? And maybe we will get a little bit of an insight about the Edge Lab and both the development there and what's going on. And I think we will get some questions regarding this as well. It's a very interesting topic indeed. So I would like to say welcome to Mats Nordlund.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to have you here.
Well, it's nice to be here. It's an exciting place to be, as always.
It is, isn't it?
Yes.
And I think that we've got quite a few people tuned in right now because AI Sweden is, well, so many things are happening, and I'm sure that they will want to listen to whatever you have to share now.
All right, thanks so much.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, it's without a doubt one of the most exciting places that I have been working at. And what I will talk about today is a little bit about AI Sweden, what it is, and some of the things we do, with a specific example on the Edge Lab. Our mission at AI Sweden is to accelerate the use of applied AI in Sweden. So that's why we exist. And we are the National Center for Applied AI. So that means that we are not only at Lindholmen. We have one site here, but we also have other sites, as I will show you soon. We're here to help you, and we're neutral, and we are able to provide a lot of good input and a lot of good equipment for you guys to come here and test out what we have. Specifically, we are hosted by, I would say, a consortium of science parks around Sweden. Lindholmen is sort of the main host, but we are equally present at all the science parks you can see here. So we have presence around the country, all the way from Luleå, all the way down to Lund. And on the west side, from, of course, Gothenburg to east, we have Linköping, Stockholm. We even have in Blekinge and a few other places. So we are, these days, I would say, omnipresent, and that is to make it easier to come in and work with us. As of last week, we had about 110 partners. You can see most of them here. There are 2 or 3 that haven't been on this list yet. We haven't quite updated it, but it's in 4 main categories. We have government, public sector. On the top left, we have the academic sector. On the top right, we have startups and smaller companies on the bottom left, and then we have the larger conglomerations and the larger companies on the bottom right. As you can see, there's a mix of Swedish and international companies here, but they all have a presence in Sweden. And what we do, we facilitate these getting together and working together to develop applied AI solutions within the facilities that we offer. The strategy and what we encourage our partners to do is to consider this as a gym. So you have essentially a gym membership, and you go there and you practice on our equipment, you use our personal trainers, and you gym together with other partners and build your strengths. And the more that you come in and the more you work out at the gym, the stronger you get faster. So what we encourage our partners to do is come in, bring their questions, bring their knowledge, work with partners from other sectors, discover, explore, share knowledge, share it with others across sectors, and then feed it back to yourself. And we found that model, it's rather innovative, but it's been extremely effective in bringing knowledge across sectors and getting AI solutions into areas that would have taken a lot longer to reach if we hadn't used this approach. Another thing that we are trying to put in place here is to be complementary to what everybody else is doing here. So we're not trying to overlap with investments and initiatives that's being done in other parts of the Swedish ecosystem. So we try to build things that nobody else has so that we can complement it. And we also try to create value for both people who want to use an AI infrastructure, but also to the companies who are building and developing it, so that we can have an interaction of the companies that make the equipment and the companies who want to use it. And having them in the same place helps bring about innovation, reducing risk, because they can try it out in our facilities on a much more friendly environment, let's say, and the idea being that we can accelerate the whole development. So I use this model with the blue and the yellow circles, where at AI Sweden, people get together, we work together, we develop together, and bring out our knowledge to create prototypes and demonstration units. And when you have that, you are at the limit of the blue and yellow bubble. And then once you want to go in and commercialize it, you go into the AI ecosystem. And that's when you buy your own equipment, you make commercial agreements, and you develop it in the normal way. But the idea of having AI Sweden is to very quickly bring our partners from their starting points to the border of the blue system and then into the blue system as fast as we can. And this model works for public organizations, for academia, and for private. And it works extremely well when these are working together. We offer a number of different things. You can see the main categories here. So we have networks where we have company executives getting together, exchanging experiences of how to apply AI and how to make progress in this area. We have some big initiatives, some big projects going on. We also provide competence development for various specialists in AI area, and a number of other things too, and not least the data factory, which I will talk mostly about for the rest of this talk. The data factory is something unique that we put in place here in Sweden when we started AI Sweden back in 2019. It's something that no other national AI center had at the time. We have since seen a number of international AI centers replicating what we've done here. But the idea is that data being so important, we shouldn't just have an AI center focusing on algorithms, but the interplay of the algorithms and the data needs to be in the same place. So that was the backdrop to why we put the data factory in place. The data factory itself comprises 3 different main components. We have a training environment where we allow our partners to come in and train algorithms. It's a fairly standard storage and compute facility, not very large, but big enough to be useful. Then we have a test bed, and I will talk about the test bed shortly. And the third area we have is networks, compliance and competence network, we call them. This is expert groups where our partners send some of their professional leaders in different areas to, again, learn from each other. So we have one area which is in legal, where company lawyers from different companies get together discussing issues like GDPR, inventors' right, who is an inventor if an AI invents something, for example, and things along these lines. We also have a really exciting group that I was part of yesterday, which is on the infrastructure side, where our partners discuss how to set up different types of training infrastructures, how to set up security solutions, how to leverage what's available in Europe. There's a lot of EU resources available for free to Swedish companies, academia, and others to actually do development on that maybe not many of you guys know about. But these are the kind of knowledge and insights that we try to share with the partners here to, again, make these resources available as fast as possible to people who are involved. The test bed, which is the centerpiece here, is something that is unique within our data factory. In the beginning, it was undefined. It was essentially saying that we should have something that's available to our partners to come in and build and test things they want to do that's useful to them, especially the interplay with the companies that manufacture the equipment and the companies who want to use it should take place in this test bed. So a number of things have happened there. You can see some of the value that has been generated in this testbed area. We've had hackathons, which means that companies bring in some of their data sets. They invite teams from the outside, and we host these to compete and try to come up with solutions. We've had some development of tool chains, the MLOps, the federated learning, and other things. And one of the perhaps most successful implementations on the testbed so far is the Edge Lab. And the Edge Lab in itself looks like this here last week. You can see a number of the devices on the shelves to the right. We have a 5G communication system in there with a 5G dot, which is the round white dot above the green looking window. And then behind that window, we have some really powerful compute devices as well that also can complement what we have in the lab. This here is software configurable. We can do pretty much any tests we want. We have data sets there that we can run on these machines. And we can simulate field conditions with real equipment. Currently, the value of the equipment here, we estimate at about 20 million SEK, and we have more coming in here shortly. So it is a very strong lab with extremely good equipment that can replicate pretty much any field conditions that you guys might have. The background for why we set this up was a challenge that several industries and several companies had, and that is that many wants to create AI and create value by leveraging data that we collect. The data is generated in very large quantities. So we collect, for example, on the automotive side, as you can see up on the top left here, huge amount of data is collected by these cars every minute or every hour. And the question is, how do we deal with all this data when it comes to privacy, with data transfer, both when it comes to compliance and costs? How do we store all the data? It takes time to get all this data in place. And then we have the security concerns. So how do we do it? And it turns out that the costs were going up more or less exponentially, and the complexity was also going up. So we were facing a situation where we said that the current direction might not be sustainable. So the question was what to do. And a number of companies then got together and said, okay, let's build a lab where we can try to experiment with this in the test bed. And we said that what we want to do is we want to solve these three paradoxes. We want to have more data to make good algorithms, but we also want less data. We want to share this data, but we have to keep it private. And we want to transfer the data, but we aren't allowed to, so we have to keep it local. So how do we solve these three paradoxes? And that was the general background for the whole Edge Lab. And to understand what we do is we create an algorithm either in the cloud or somewhere else. We transfer it out into the edge devices. Then the edge devices do the training. And then they transfer back only the parameters from the algorithm. So that means that we don't transfer any large data sets in these networks. And we can either do it as central, as is shown to the left, or as a swarm configuration, as you can see on the right, where we don't have a centralized computer, but all the different participating units just share the data among themselves. It's relatively easy to understand the concept, but the big question is how to actually do it. And that is why we built the lab, to actually figure out the how. So now what you do here and what we can do is more or less built as a Lego setup. You design your experiment, what kind of architecture you want, what kind of compute plans you want. You connect up through software configuration, the communication, environments, devices, and so forth that you want. And then you run your experiments. And then you can share the knowledge here. The knowledge can be in the form of models, in papers, demos, reports, whatever it might be. And then others might take that and build further on it. And we discover new challenges as we work with this. So companies who engage, they learn how to build an edge setup. For edge training, they learn the tool chains, what tools to work with. They learn what use cases this is useful for, how to deal with security, and also product strategy. If they want to do edge training in the future on their products, they need to think about how to equip the products with sufficient compute power. And for companies who are manufacturing such hardware and infrastructure, they say that this is a unique pre-launch pad for their new products and services. And that is exactly what we had hoped to achieve with this Edge Lab. And today we can say that we do have a world-class lab. We are getting a lot of feedback, a lot of interest internationally in what we've built. We're getting questions on a daily basis, several from all over the world about how this works, what it can do, what other can learn from us. And that is a good feedback, and that we actually have positioned this as we do have a world-class lab here. And now our ambition is to go into world leadership. What does that mean? Well, if I made an analogy here with Hollywood and film. So you can have a film studio that is world-class. It doesn't make you into Hollywood. To become a Hollywood, you need culture, you need really forward-thinking people coming here and getting together and experimenting on the edge with how can things be done. So what we're trying to do now is to position our Edge Learning Lab as the Hollywood for Edge Labs. And that should be a really interesting and exciting thing to get engaged in for you guys who are interested. And we're putting this in place now in the fall. So there will be a consortium doing exactly this here now. So the plan, and I think this is the final slide, is to expand the lab. continue to expand it beyond where we are, build the Edge Learning Consortium, and we have a number of projects ranging from forest projects to, we had a big space proof of concept last week, so a lot of space activities starting up now. There's automotive, there's a lot of other things starting up as well right now. So if you want to follow our progress, you can go to our website, it's ai.se. So with that, I am passing it back to you guys here.
Thank you, Mats. Impressive development. Lots of things going on here.
It's a lot of good fun here.
Yeah, absolutely. Should we just have a look at the Q&A? We've got a question here. And well, you've been talking about the Edge Lab, learning and so on, but we've got a question here. Can you explain the meaning of Edge Learning? Maybe
yes.
A bit more in detail then.
Yeah, I can do that. I brought back a slide I used here before because it helps to illustrate. So in traditional way of training an AI algorithm, what we do is we drive a car or we send out some other sensor equipment to pick up data. And then you bring all this data back to a central facility, a central computer somewhere. And then you store all this data and then you train it there. What we're trying to do now is saying that let's not bring all the data back home, but let's keep the data out on the edge. And the edge could be a car, it could be your cell phone, it could be an X-ray device or something out in the hospital or somewhere else. That's where the data is created. And that's, most of the time there is compute power there on the edge. So what we are saying is let's use that compute power and where the data is, and then just train it there. And then each of these devices who are training on a small set of data, but it has been shown that if you take each of these devices that you can see here, who has a small trained model, and then you can federate that, which means bring it together, and you can more or less add up their results. That creates sort of a supermodel that behaves as if it has seen everything that all the different devices have seen. So that helps us in that we don't have to bring the data home. We just keep it out on the edge. So we don't have the big data transfer issues. We don't have the compliance issues, we think, or most of them we get away from. And we save a lot of time and costs. So it's about using compute power out where the data is created.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I hope that explained it a little bit further. So I also have a question. I mean, we know today that the lack of competence is really, it's a challenge for many, and it's what also stops many companies, many industries now from growing at their full capacity. And I know that AI Sweden now have a new initiative together with a couple of partners called AI for AI. Yes. It's almost hard to say that. I for AI Sweden's new initiative for international talent attraction. So yes. I was just, would like to see if you would like to comment on that. Yes. What are your expectations?
Well, it's a very exciting program. It was proposed by one of our partners, and they said that can we co-brand a graduate program with AI Sweden? And the idea is to bring in international talent to Sweden, not to take what we have, but actually do some brain gain here. So we went out together. There were from AI Sweden and with 3 partner companies, one in automotive, one in medical devices, and one of the hospitals. And we got some good help with recruiting international young talent to come here and spend 18 months in this program. And they rotate. So they spend 6 months at each of these 3 companies or hospital and work on some projects there. And then after they've been to these 3 different sites, just like many of the other graduate programs here, then they pick one, hopefully, and stay here in Sweden. This is a pilot program, so we're doing it on a small scale now with 3, but we are trying to learn what works, what doesn't, so that we can roll it out much broader here after Christmas and invite a lot more companies, not only in Gothenburg, but also across the country here.
Exciting. Thank you for explaining that a little bit. Then I think we will say thank you, and great having you here today at Lindholmen Open Day. Thank you for participating.
Thanks so much.
Because we have another thing coming up pretty soon here. So I will also hand over to Hanna, and I think we are now swapping to Swedish maybe? Yes, thank you so much.